What's your favorite idea? Mine is riding the trends like a surfer, with the new show reawakening the fanbase after years of dormancy. You can imagine how excited a lot of people must be right now. So, for the occasion, and for the views, I've decided to review Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Oh, don't hug me, I'm scared. What can be said? Well, what can't be said? DHMIS is a lot of things, really. It's cute, it's creepy, it's funny, it's dramatic, colorful, gory, simple, detailed, red light, green light. I didn't watch the series until after it ended, but I can definitely see how it captured the hearts of millions and covered them in glitter. The partnership of a docile, friendly TV show for kids with a mortifying, loud, chaotic gore fest made for definite entertainment, and definite scares. Oh yeah, plus it looked amazing. I guess that part's important too. The amount of effort so many people poured into this is something I don't think I can comprehend. And not only with the puppets either. The green screens, the animation, the stop motion, how was this made? The music, a must for shows like this, was never half-baked. All of the songs on this puppet playlist are enjoyable in their own way, and blend perfectly into the videos they were made for. And of course, the story. Or at least what people say it is. The amount of symbolism in these things could warrant a college class about them. And while I'm definitely not good at deciphering this kind of stuff, watching other people online come up with theories and interpretations about what it means, seeing them come together and try to answer questions that were spoken through props, it's really great. How can you praise something that deserves so much more? Well, I made this, so I guess it's a start. Since this is a bit of a special episode, I'm going to be shaking up the format a little. Rather than just do an overlook on the entire series, I'm going to give each episode of DHMIS a short review. My reason? DHMIS is a series that took 5 years to finish. After watching the series back to back for this, it's clear that some things changed between episodes. I'm also going to try not to theorize, because I can't. I mean, have you seen this series? And also there's just a lot of interpretations out there already. I don't think I can cover any more ground that hasn't been walked on before. And of course, this review will contain spoilers. If you don't want to get spoiled, or want to watch the series blind first, please close off of this and go watch it. It's only a half hour long, and it'll only feel like a full hour. Now for those of you ready for this review, you'd better prepare for the most perplexing puppet show you're ever gonna see. Pilot episodes are interesting. There's a basic idea of what a show will be like, but never really what it ends up becoming. But luckily, they usually predict how good a show will be based on what they, well, show. So with that said, was DHMIS's pilot episode good? Does rain come from the sky? Firstly, this set. This set was not made by a TV studio. The amount of elbow grease put into this show's looks from day one was insurmountable. So many details, and with so little money. On top of that, you also had animation. Granted, it's not as impressive as what the series would go on to do next, but still! That 3D 360 shot in particular was just... This was made in 2011? By a small team? In terms of music, the song here is, well, a song that would fit here. It's bouncy, upbeat, and uses a lot of synthetic sounding instruments. I could see this being played on Playhouse Disney, or at least the parts that are sang anyway. Which brings us to what actually happened here. Since the series was just getting started, the characters weren't really fleshed out yet. They still had their personalities, but they didn't really bounce off the situation or each other in more interesting ways that other episodes did later. But that all becomes more relevant than a year-old meme once the video reaches its conclusion. What should have been a fun session of playful arts and crafts turns into a horrifying meat-covered jump scare that lasts for half a minute. While iconic within the community now, the original rush of adrenaline this gave so many people is perhaps the main reason why DHMIS took off in the first place. One second you're watching a kid's TV show, and the next you're watching a kid's nightmare. Simply brilliant. Altogether, DHMIS 1 is a pilot episode. it's missing some things the series would get later on, but there was nowhere to go back to when this happened. Admittedly, the series got better from here, but that's saying a lot of a lot. Time for the next one. Well, to start, the effects got even better. We see the character's legs, so that's an upgrade from the last episode. On top of that, there's now even more animation, and stop motion. I see this episode as when the crew got really, or I guess even more, serious about the way this all looked. With the fan response from episode 1, they took everything their followers loved about their styles, doubled down on it, and added a new one. While not the most impressive thing out there, this is still a YouTube series after all. The fact that they were able to make this much for a 5-minute video demands my utmost respect. Plus they added at least 10 Easter eggs from episode 1, which definitely did their fans a service. Parting from that, the song here honestly surprised me on my rewatch. It starts off slow, with nothing more than a slight tick-tock for a tempo, but over, well, time it starts to get more detailed, and it varies itself up throughout the video to keep your ears paying attention. Even when it gets to the scary part, the music still feels natural and well-paced. Oh yeah, the scary part. I'll be honest, this isn't as horrifying as episode 1. I mean, the stop motion here is, like I said, amazing, and the designs of the old puppets are unsettling, but it's just too slow for me to get scared. With episode 1, it did take a while for the creepy stuff to get moving, but it was still sudden. It was a loud horror movie scene that came out of nowhere from a children's edutainment show. Here, it's already been established that this is a bit of a horror series, so the actual scare itself can kind of be seen from far away. Even then, it just fades into the intense part way too easily and feels more like an extension of the video, not another video being played out of nowhere. But with that rant out of the way, now we can get to what's my favorite part of this whole experience: the characters. You see, this is the episode where Roy got introduced. Isn't he just a delight? While the main three aren't still that complex yet, it's the clock that really makes this interesting. First off, this is when teachers started to get more aggressive. The notepad was a bossy jerk, but she still felt like a friend, even though she wasn't. She used a calm voice and never yelled mean things at the trio if they messed up. Whereas the clock is about as loud and notable as repetitive tick-tock in a quiet room. The clock is a straight-up lunatic. He uses blunt force-through words to tell the gang what to do and what to think. Plus he still manages to pull off the friendly teacher persona. And believably. This might sound weird if you haven't seen the short, but he flip-flops between a wise educator and a mean authority figure without you ever noticing. And if that wasn't enough, the others realize that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and the scene that follows is just, well, this.
Now you can see the importance of time. It helps us make pizza, it keeps things in line.
But when did it start?
And when will it stop?
Time is important, and I am a clock.
If we run out of time, then where does it go?
Is time even real? Does anyone know?
Maybe time's just a construct of human perception, an illusion created by...
Thanks, I didn't need to hear anyway. In summary, episode 2 feels more like a sequel to the pilot rather than the first episode after the pilot. A lot of things feel the same, and some even feel like they're trying to copy episode 1. But the crew clearly learned from experience after episode 1 and tried to make this one better. And they succeeded. It has better character, better music, and a really better set. You know what they say, time is the best teacher. Clearly. Ah, DHMIS 3. Who doesn't love DHMIS 3? Well, you kinda have to. They spent a ton of money on this thing, with the Kickstarter campaign having been a grand victory, granting the series to go on for longer. This was the first episode released after fans proved they wanted more, and more they certainly got. Since they just got through a successful Kickstarter, the sets here put the fans' money where they wanted it. Not only does it span 4 complex landscapes, but they just genuinely look good and have variety in them. From the starting forest, to the pink land of love, to Malcolm's domain, Everything here looks like it took a ton of time to put together, and that every second paid off. Plus, it's a step out of this show's comfort zone. While a forest had been seen before in episode 2, this is the only episode that only features natural landscapes, and it's definitely more memorable than the other sets. In terms of alternates, the two big ones are the Cloud Ride and the Story of Michael. The Cloud Ride is absolutely impressive for this series, and it's probably the biggest and most detailed 2D animation the team had done at this point. The Story of Michael isn't as big as the other animations, but it has a definite look to it and is pretty unique among the other animations the show features. Also, the stop motion at the end, while brief, is legitimately impressive, and a little gross. But this is DHMIS. The episode would feel naked without something like this. But enough about sights, let's talk about sounds! The song here is in the same league as episode 2's song, in that it starts off slowly, but gradually gets more detailed over time. Frankly, I find it better than 2's because of how many instruments there are here. Up until now, the series had mostly used a small amount of instruments to make its music, but here, they used a lot more. There's a violin and some drums, but mainly there's a harp, which is not only fitting for a setting like this, but also just sounds pretty and makes the song feel more friendly, which is actually fitting for the story too. In this episode, Yellow Guy runs off during a chicken picnic after Duck kills a pesky bee. He's then whisked away by a little baby pigeon to learn about love. But, in true DHMIS fashion, the lesson is bad. And not only that, it's also a little disturbing too. It's revealed at the end of the episode that the cute woodland critters Yellow's been hanging around are actually cultists, and they indoctrinate him into their fellowship of the king. The scene itself is, like 2's ending, not that scary to me because it's so slowly paced, even though it's a little more nerve-wracking on the first time through. But it's after you rewatch the episode with this knowledge in mind that things start to become unsettling. Watching these rejected Care Bear cousins tell Yellow that his friends are hateful, that he's lonely and that there's a right and wrong way to love, on top of saying that they love him even though they just met, is legitimately uncomfortable once you know what they actually are. Granted, the teachers are supposed to be controlling and manipulative, but unlike the other times where Red Guy was around to not be affected by their nonsense, this time Yellow Guy is separated from the other two, and he's the most susceptible to this kind of stuff. Just be careful around strangers, okay? All in all, as the first episode after the Kickstarter, it definitely shows. While the more expensive looks and nice song would have been enough to impress someone like me, it was the plot of this one that really made me interested. And do you want to know the best part? The overarching story is about to begin! Lovely. Episode 4 is my second favorite. As is mandatory, we'll start with the looks. While the set isn't as impressive as what they've done in the past, it's still a DHMIS set. Of course it's going to be detailed and impressive, but part of why it's more simple is because of this episode's main attraction, the digital world. While 3D had been done before, it was never really to this extent, and while the landscape isn't anything to write home about, despite its size, it's the character design and movement that impressed me. Again, it's nothing too fancy, but a part of the fun with this series is that it's always trying something new. I don't think anyone was expecting this, especially since the main characters had only been fully animated in episode 2. Here, they made 3D characters for one 5-minute YouTube short film. On top of that, I really dig these more humanoid designs. They look like characters you'd find on one of those cheap kids channels. But good. Plus, I don't know how they pulled off getting a room inside the computer's head, but whoever did that deserves an oblong. The song uses synthetics, but here it fits. This episode is about computers, so it only makes sense that the song would be made using a computer. Apart from that, it's paced really well and knows when to speed up or slow down. Also, the rhythm is pretty funky, which is a sweet bonus. Now for why this is my second favorite episode. The story. The premise is just like the other episodes. Red Guy, Yellow Guy, and Duck are interrupted by a singing object trying to teach them an awful lesson. This time there's a bit of a twist in that they're trying to learn what the biggest thing in the world is, which doesn't seem that important but comes back later in the episode. After entering the digital world, they are given 3 things to do. Look at charts, give themselves some digital style, or do some digital dancing. Hey, this is fun! What really interests me is the scare factor. There is a jump scare in the middle, which is effective, but it's the ending that gets me. As they continue to repeat the activities, the song gets faster and faster and more copies of themselves join the computer and dance. Eventually it evolves to the point of a gigantic confusing dance party where Red Guy, through walking out the door, is the only one that escapes. While it is unsettling the first time around, which is the mark of a good scare, it's the concept that I'm interested in. Think about it. They went online to try to learn something, but all they did was gradually get lured into a dance party through opening the same 3 doors over and over again. Yeah, leave it to the YouTuber critic to lecture about rabbit holes. That'll go over great with my audience. As a finishing touch, this episode is also the one where the overarching story the fans love so much finally began. Granted, it only happens at the end, but it's where the journey technically started, and it deserves a special kind of praise for that alone. Episode 4 is different, but in the best ways possible. It pulled out tons of surprises, all to the pleasure of the fans, and delivered what might just be the best looking episode yet. What's the biggest thing in the world? The amount of effort that goes into making stuff like this. Episode 5 is my second favorite, in terms of concept. After Red Guy managed to find a way out in episode 4, Yellow Guy and Duck don't seem to realize that he's gone. But they do know that something's different.
Something's missing.
Is it this guy?
Fish and chips. Steak and beef. Chicken-a-chow. Grapes and eggs. Steak, eggs.
While Yellow Guy remains just as excitable and interested as ever, this time Duck tries to rebel against the teachers and answer Red Guy's call. Ultimately, he fails, and is fed to Yellow? I know this is a horror series, but whoa! While this episode managed to give Duck and Yellow more character, it was the teachers that I find the most fascinating. They showed something that none of the other teachers throughout the entire series did. Fear. They're the only ones in the original series to have shown any vulnerability. The scene where their song gets interrupted by the ringing phone might be one of the most memorable scenes in the entire franchise. On top of that, the Can and Me are also memorable for just how controlling they are compared to the others. The other teachers were pushy and always shot down ideas that didn't match their own. But this is the one time where they legitimately tried to hide something from one of the characters. It is intimidating to see just how far these things are willing to go to keep singing their songs. As for the other aspects, they're pretty good. The set here feels more full than the other ones, and while there was only one animated part at the end, it was a little choppy but still looked impressive and complex. I could see this being part of an intro to a horror show or something. The main attraction with the tech department here are the chart and diagram of the body. While they're not used that much, it's clear that a lot of time was put into making them. They look stunning and legitimately professional as a result. They look like something you'd find in a science museum meant to educate about the body. In terms of music, I think it has the weakest song. It's not that the beat or instruments are off, those parts are great. It's that the teachers speak sing through most of it. Granted, the last part does get interesting as things speed up and the voices become distorted, but the music here isn't all that memorable. Finally, the scare aspect. I'll be honest, I first learned about DHMIS through MatPat, so when I got to this episode, knowing what would happen after Duck hit the camera, I closed the video. Look, I was young, okay? But still, having Duck laid out in a dark hospital room having his organs be devoured by gigantic cans, leaving him as nothing more than his beak and some leftovers? It might just be the most scary thing the show's ever put out. And having Yellow Guy eat what became of him? That took bravery to put out. Episode 5 isn't the greatest, but it works perfectly as the prelude to the finale. It focuses on the right stuff, giving it ample time and attention, and prepares the fans for one last hurrah of horror. And for what that is, well, time for my favorite episode.
Good night, guys. I miss you.
Episode 6 is big. Really big. For starters, they did the one thing nobody was expecting, and went outside the world of Fountain Fabric, and into the real world. The choice to use real world locations here was probably one of the smartest things the team could have done for a finale. Plus, the actual set still has DHMIS' signature detail and Easter eggs, even though it's only used at the beginning and end. If we're talking alternates, there's an entirely animated segment, and while it only lasts for a few seconds, it is outstandingly smooth and complex. Plus, it somehow manages to include what feels like every Easter egg the series could have given us. If you're looking for music, well, the lamp is not the way to go. But there is one thing I think every fan appreciated. They remade the episode 1 song for this. While not as professional as the original, mainly because that was the point, the thought here undeniably counts. I was legitimately singing along with Red during this part, knowing what was going to happen next. If that wasn't enough, they also remade all of the other songs into one song, and managed to integrate it into the chaos of its scene too. Now those things, they rock, and they really rock. But what made this episode my die-hard favorite is the feeling it tried to invoke, and succeeded in doing so. Finality. This episode feels like a genuine finale to the franchise. After fast-forwarding through the typical DHMIS format, we then cut to Red Guy, liberated from the routine he used to be in, but not exactly free. After realizing that he wants to go back to his old life and trying to spice up the one he was in, he's then confronted with the control panel to the world Yellow's still stuck in. This moment made the episode. Red frantically tries to turn off the machine to save his friend, but only makes Yellow's situation worse by bombarding him with insane teachers. Then, from the foggy darkness, a hand grabs Red, and it's revealed who was behind it all. The music swells to a dramatic scale the series had never done before now. Red finds the wire connecting the panel to an outlet. With Yellow's happiness on the line, Red says without fear, and pulls the plug. And thus, new characters appear where the old ones first appeared. The calendar moves to the next day, the notepad starts singing, and the cycle continues. Look, I know I said I wasn't going to theorize, but this is the finale. Please, just let me have this. What can I say about this? Well, what can't I say about this? While I can't say that this felt lazy, or rushed, or thoughtless, or contrived, or like a last-minute change, or anything negative really, I guess what I can say is that this was passionate and heartfelt. This was a genuine attempt to give their fans closure, in their own special way, of course. It not only succeeded, but it felt like it legitimately added an entirely new layer of depth to the franchise, in just 7 minutes. This is the magnum opus of the original DHMIS series. Great visuals, great music, great thrills, great character, great finale. And now that the TV show is here, I have a feeling that we're all in for a wild song and dance.
What's that?